Here's a typical Ajax example that uses CSS to indicate that something has changed in the page to emphasize. This is called emphasis.html, that text has been downloaded and some of the text you're seeing in the web page is new. This is a typical Ajax example showing how to use CSS to draw the user's attention to the fact that something has changed in the web page, and it's a big issue because without page refreshes, the changes you make in the web page are always in danger of being missed by the user. So here's how it works. When I click the display message button, new text will be fetched, but there's a difference here. It will display, this application is going to display using CSS styles the new text in red for a moment and then convert it back to black text, as you're going to see here. So watch as I click the display message button. As you see, the text was fetched using Ajax, and for a moment there it flashed red to draw the user's attention to the fact that the text has changed. That's one of the uses you'll often see of CSS inside Ajax. So when you click the display message button, the text was fetched and briefly it flashed red in order to indicate to the user. Another way of doing this is to make the background color flash red or some other appropriate color that will draw attention to the fact that the text has changed. So as you see, every time the text is fetched, the text is displayed in red and then changes back to black. So that's one of the good ways to use CSS and Ajax to draw the user's attention to the fact that something has changed. I'm going to take a look at how this works now. There's the button. It has the caption display message. On click, you call the getData function with the URL data.text, and the target element, which is going to display the data, is going to be target div. So this is a div element with the ID target div, and originally, of course, this div displays the fetch data will go here. After you do actually download the text says this text was fetched using Ajax. It will turn red and then go back to black. The question is, how does that work? Well, let's take a look at the getData function up here. What we're going to do is we're going to get an object corresponding to the target div. Document.getElementById target div like this, as you see. And so now we have an object corresponding to the target div element that is going to display the downloaded text. So we'll be able to set the styles of that object, of that target div. And here you see this is the usual function attached to the onReadyStateChange property of the XML HTTP request object, and this is the callback function. And so if the download was proceeded okay, I'm going to change the style properties color property of the div, the target div, to red. This changes the color with which text is displayed in the style div, in the div element, to red. Okay, and then you're going to download and display the text, the response text, from the server inside that object. Object.innerHTML equals XML HTTP request object.response text displays the text, and it's going to be displayed in red. How do you then, using JavaScript, how do you pause for a moment and then set the color back to black? You do that with the JavaScript setTimeout method, to which you pass a function to be called after an interval. This interval is given in milliseconds, which is 1,000th of a second. So this is 500 milliseconds. So it means that this call to set timeout means that the dimmer function will be called after 500 milliseconds, which is 1/2 second, 500 thousandths of a second. Let's take a look then at the dimmer function. So once again, the style color property is set to red for the target div. And then the text is displayed, and then the set timeout method is called, passing at the function dimmer, which is going to be called after 500 milliseconds. That's what the setTimeout method does, is it calls a function of yours after a specified timeout. So in this case, it's going to call the dimmer function after 500 milliseconds, or 1/2 second. And here is the dimmer function you have to write. You get, again, an object corresponding to the target div element. You set the object.style.color property back to black. So that's how it works. You first set the color style property of the div element to red, display the text, then call the setTimeout function, setTimeout method, with a callback function named dimmer. It's going to be called after 500 milliseconds automatically by setTimeout, In the dimmer function, you get an object corresponding to the div element, and you set that div element's color back to black. So originally it was set to red, and then in the dimmer function it's going to be set to back to black. So as you see, it works quite well. The text is downloaded, and for about half a second is displayed in red, and then set timeout takes over and sets the color back to black. So that's a very useful example because it shows how to draw attention to downloaded text downloaded from the server, and of course you can also use the background color property as well to set the background color, and that's if anything more dramatic. But in any case, the idea is that without a page refresh, you need some visual boundary to indicate to the user that something has changed. One of the good ways of doing that is to use CSS color and background color text properties.